Welcome back to the Rangers News channel on YouTube. We are still ploughing on with more content on the channel, and today we've got another transfer based video to whet your appetite ahead of the summer window opening in the coming months. Last week we focused in on the recruits brought in by Steven Gerrard during his time at the club so far, but today we're going to look at a longer period of time, the last 10 years. We'll be running through each summer transfer window of the last decade, and we'll be choosing the best signing we made in each. From the most recent window in 2019 all the way back to the Walter Smith days of 2010, we'll pick out the best recruit who came to Ibrox and made an impression. Right, we'll get on to that in a second. First of all, just our usual shout, kindly asking you if you'd mind subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Our numbers are still increasing gradually despite the current situation, and we really do appreciate all the support. So subscribe if you haven't already managed, comment and like our videos, and tell your pals if you like what you see. We've got loads of good plans for the channel once we come out the other side of all of this, but for now we'll be cracking on with some opinion based videos just to keep the football chat going. So let's get started. Current Gers boss Steven Gerrard brought in no fewer than 11 players in the summer transfer window of last year. 9 of those were permanent deals, and while the vast sum forked out for Ryan Kent will steal most of the headlines, we're going to go for a little bit of an unsung hero for our selection here. When the Gers fought off competition from a number of clubs, including our old firm rivals, to lure Joe Aribo up from Charlton Athletic, there was a buzz around the Rangers support. Addicks boss Lee Bowyer certainly didn't think the move was a good one, insisting that players only move to Scotland at the end of their careers, but Aribo has since gone on to prove that he made the right choice, despite getting off to a bit of a slower start. He really came into his own during the busy December fixture list and has shown all the quality that made him one of the most sought after young footballers in England. The youngster has also been capped by Nigeria and has a bright future ahead of him at Ibrox, with another 3 years left on his Gers contract. Gerrard's first transfer window saw him forced to rebuild a Rangers first team that had been scarred by events under Pedro Caixinha and Graham Murty. Gerrard brought in 10 permanent signings in that time, and while Alan McGregor had arguably been his best recruit, we're going to plunge for a player who he forked out the most money on. When he paid around $2.2 million to Osijek for Borna Barisic, little was known about the quality of the player we were getting. Of course, he had made an impression in our Europa League meeting with the Croatian side, but would he be able to handle the step up to a much bigger club with loftier ambitions? At first, the answer was no. It took Barisic a full season to acclimatise to his new Glasgow surroundings, but he's since been a standout in virtually every match he's played for the club, steadily becoming the best left back in Scottish football. At just over £2 million and with Croatia caps to his name, he looks even better than the player we expected when he first joined. Let's face it, former Gers boss Pedro Caixinha signed a fair few flops in the summer of 2017. From Carlos Peña to Eduardo Herrera to Dalcio and even the experienced Bruno Alves, he didn't really get it right too often. But Caixinha is still responsible for bringing 2 key members of the current Ibrox setup to the club. While Ryan Jack looks to have all the attributes to be a future skipper at Ibrox, we're going to go for Alfredo Morelos as the best signing of 2017. The fee paid to HJK Helsinki for the Colombian isn't known for sure, but it's understood to have been around the £1 million mark. 117 starts and 77 goals later, and the fiery forward is undoubtedly the most prized asset in Gerrard's current side. It hasn't always been easy with Morelos, of course, but the talents of the Colombian international have always been there for all to see. For all of Caixinha's failings, this is one success story from his time in the hot seat. It really is slim pickings when looking back at the previous summer of 2016 when Mark Warburton was in charge. After comfortably winning the championship in his first season and reaching the Scottish Cup final, it was felt by Warburton that he just needed to add a bit of experience to his side to try and wrestle the title away from Celtic. He signed the likes of Joey Barton, Nico Crancher, Philip Senderos and Clint Hill in what proved to be a bad window for the Englishman. One of the only bright sparks of that time was Josh Windass, who was brought in alongside Matt Crooks from Accrington Stanley. Windass went on to play 73 times for Rangers, scoring 19 goals. He'll never be remembered as too much of a hero down Ibrox way, but he was undoubtedly the best signing of that damaging summer window. Current Gers skipper James Tavernier was brought in by Warburton the previous year in 2015. Tavernier arrived for about $200,000 from Wigan Athletic. He had enjoyed an up and down career so far, but was yet to find a place to call home. Nearly 5 years down the line, and he certainly has that now. Tavernier has close to 250 Rangers appearances to his name and is on 46 goals, with number 50 likely not too far away. He has often divided opinion amongst the Gers support, but it's hard to argue with what he's given us since he joined the club, and under Steven Gerrard, Tav has certainly taken performances to another level. Ali McCoy's summer window of 2014 is probably another one that is best forgotten. The former Gers hero was preparing his side for life back in the Scottish Championship after sauntering to the League One title without losing a single game. But he knew life would be tougher in the second tier, with Edinburgh duo Hearts and Hibs both involved in a three-way scrap for promotion. Like Warburton 2 years later, McCoy went for experience, bolstering his ranks with the likes of Chris Boyd and Marius Saliukas. Kenny Miller was another key acquisition, and undoubtedly the best one made that summer. The forward was lured back from Canadian side Vancouver Whitecaps and would go on to become a pretty important player for us again for a number of seasons before eventually moving on in 2018. Experience didn't really work for McCoy that summer, but he does deserve credit for bringing in Kenny Miller, a player who would go on to help a number of his managerial successors. Given that we found ourselves in the third of Scotland's 4 professional tiers in 2013, it's perhaps no surprise that the calibre of player was hardly memorable. Names like John Daly and Bilal Mojni are likely to send a shiver down the spine, but there was one player who went on to have a decent enough career in Govan. 2013 was a year that Nicky Clark joined us. The forward, who is now with Dundee United, would go on to net 24 goals in 51 starts for the club. He netted 30 seconds into his debut against East Fife, while a memorable goal against Hibernian a few years later also sticks out. It would be fair to say that we will rarely see a summer like 2012 at Ibrox ever again. A demotion to the lowest tier of Scottish football brought about an upheaval to make any Gers supporter squirm. We lost household names like Sasa Papac, Stephen Naismith and Alan McGregor, while the players coming in weren't really of a similar standard. The likes of Kevin Kyle, Fran Sandaza and David Templeton really failed to live up to any sort of expectation, but Dean Shields did at least offer us something for a few years to come. The Northern Irishman netted 31 goals for the club in a 4-year spell that ended with him moving on to Dundalk. He maybe lacked the quality to play for the club at a higher level, but you could never really criticise his work rate or attitude. In terms of longevity, not too many in recent history of Rangers come close to Lee Wallace. The fullback, who would go on to captain the side, arrived from Hearts in 2011 for around £1.5 million. Wallace went on to play over 250 times for the club, brilliantly staying with us even after our demotion from the top flight. Things ended a little disappointingly for him as he was phased out of game time under Steven Gerrard, but he still got a rousing reception at the end of his time at Ibrox. In terms of value for money and the fact we got the best part of a decade out of him, it really is hard to think of too many better signings made over the past 10 years. And finally, away back in 2010, it was Walter Smith who first brought the wonder that was Nikica Jelavic into our lives. We shelled out a huge fee of around £4 million for the Croat as he switched the green of Rapid Vienna for the blue of Rangers in a heartbeat. From overhead kicks to hat-tricks and cup final winning goals, he really gave us everything before moving to Everton for the rather paltry fee of around £5 million. Had we not been going through such financial turmoil at the time, the fee would undoubtedly have been at least double. In terms of forwards to play for the club this century, there really haven't been too many better than Nikica Jelavic.